Today on Mind Palace Memory Training, I have a pretty exciting video to talk about today. The topic being about how to memorize entire strings of numbers. As far as 10 digits, and some people taking this method all the way up to memorizing 30 digits or hundreds of digits, depending on how far you actually want to train this method. And not only will I be teaching you this new method, which works in conjunction with the method I taught you last time on Mind Palace Memory Training, the numbers method. This system also works well with the Mind Palace. I will teach you how to incorporate it into your own Mind Palace, thus creating this mix of memory techniques that you'll be able to use that all kind of cohere into one flawless and fluid Mind Palace technique. This is the first step in doing that. The method we're talking about today is called the body method. But I'm going to need a little bit of help to speak about that from an old friend that you know already. Now, the body method is a method of memorizing strings of information, extremely effective at memorizing numbers. Some users being able to memorize up to 30 all the way up to 100 digits when they use it in conjunction with character, action, object. I find that to be a bit excessive, to be honest. A good skill to have perhaps, but in practice you will rarely ever need to remember a solid string of numbers that many characters long. But it is a powerful testament to how effective and strong this particular memory method is, even if it is pretty much limited to only a few practical uses. While I only use it to memorize long strings of numbers, in theory you could use this method to memorize specific objects, tasks, or other various items you would use in a Mind Palace to memorize. It's entirely your choice if you want to use this method to memorize other things, but it's designed around the purpose of memorizing numbers more than anything else. So what makes this memory tool so effective? Simply put, it is designed like a miniature Mind Palace, and one that you are guaranteed never to forget the pegs for. On its own, it is already an irreplaceable tool, but combined with two other methods that we've already talked about in this series, it becomes an extremely powerful tool that you can implement without preparation at a moment's notice. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't use this method. Today, I will be showing you two things. Firstly, how the method works on its own, and then secondly, how to combine it with the Mind Palace. If you haven't watched my video about the number system already, please go and do that now, because it is required to using this method. Once you watch that video, come back to this one and we will continue. Scully, are you wiggling your eyebrows? You know you don't have eyebrows, right? Yeah. So here's how it works. As the name suggests, the body method uses your body, or whoever's you so choose, we're going to use Scully today, to memorize information. We will be using numbers for this lesson, but before we get to that, let's walk through the pegs first. The top of your head becomes peg 1, either where you store the first piece of information you want to keep, or where you would remember the first digit of the code. Your nose becomes peg 2, then your mouth becomes peg 3, your chest becomes peg 4, your gut becomes peg 5, hips are 6, thighs become 7, knees are in 8th place, the bottom of your foot is 9, and the room you're in becomes peg number 10. Now in theory you could add even more pegs than this, but it can become confusing and rather redundant if you add too many, so be cautious. I personally never see the need to memorize more than 10 characters at a time, at least as far as numbers are concerned. And if you need more than 10 pegs, you're better off using your Mind Palace. But now that you know how it works, let's put it to practice. Here's a string of 10 randomly selected numbers. It could be anything: a phone number, a license plate, a credit card number, a password, a social security, but in this case it's just a randomly selected dice roll. The numbers to memorize are 7, 2, 4, 4, 8, 6, 7, 3, 3, 4. Okay, think you got it? I'll show you how to memorize it for certain. The first number is a 7. Do you remember the image for 7 you created after watching the number system video? For me, it happens to be a die, so I imagine balancing a stack of dice on my forehead. 2 happens to be a 2, which is a duck, so I remember the second position. I would remember a family of ducks walking across my nose, the mother and her ducklings all following in a row behind her. Position 3 and 4 are both 4s. For me, the image for 4 is a box, so for position 3, I will imagine that all of my teeth have been replaced by boxes, and for the 4th position, I will imagine that I made a chest plate of armor out of boxes, and I proudly wear it like a knight in cardboard armor. My 5th number in the sequence is 8, and my image for the number 8 is a snowman. Position 8 on my body is my stomach, so I'll use my imagination to think of a snowman moving through my digestive tract. I can feel the ice-cold little man crawling away. The 6th number also so happens to be the number 6. My image for number 6 is a gun, and position 6 on the body is your hip, so imagine pulling a water gun from your hip holster. The 7th number in the sequence, again, happens to be a 7, and we already mentioned that the image for 7 is a die. Position 7 on your body would be your thigh, so imagine that you're using your thigh as a table to roll a pair of die. Actually imagine that your thigh has become a table that you're using to roll the die on. We have the number 3 in the 8th and 9th position in our sequence here. The image for 3 is a pyramid, so imagine that you're crawling on your hands and knees and you keep crawling over these little toy pyramids. And then when you stand up again, you're still stepping on them with the bottom of your foot. The 10th and final number in our sequence was a 4. We already talked about the number 4 having the image of a box, but the position for 10 in the body method is the room that you're in. So imagine that you've been turned into an action figure, and the room you're in has been turned into a giant box, so you've been thrown into this big box. So can you understand how it works so far? Like the Mind Palace, you assign information to a specific position, and you encode that information in a way that you will be able to remember it through these little stories that interact with those positions. This is the traditional way the body method is to be used, but I like to take it one step further when I use it. Instead of always using my own body to memorize information and patterns, I will oftentimes assign characters to a specific topic. For example, if I want to use this method to remember a topic that is science-related, I might use Albert Einstein or Isaac Newton and position them somewhere on my Mind Palace, so that when I walk through it, I will be able to see where they are, where the information belongs. Maybe I want to remember key pages and paragraphs in a book. Maybe I'll use William Shakespeare, memorizing the numbers on him and then placing him somewhere else in my Mind Palace. This does a couple of things. It condenses the information and allows you to file the strings of numbers that you want to memorize in specific locations of your Mind Palace, allowing you an extra level of organization and depth, much the same way that your computer can compress and zips files, then stores it in a specific location on your laptop. So now that you know how to combine these two methods, I recommend strongly that you continue practicing them. Visit your Mind Palace to make sure everything's still fresh. Go through your number pegs to make sure you still remember what numbers associate to what images. Use this method to memorize phone numbers, card numbers, everything, and before too long, it will become a regular thing that you don't even have to think about, no preparation, at a moment's notice, and you can be ready to use this method.